not going to like force that down the other one's throat like you're doing in this video. Thank you so much for being here today. Today we are talking all about what to do if the runner is not doing the work. So if you're interested to know, looking for a little guidance, watch this video. Alright guys, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here today. If you don't already know, I'm Serena.
And I'm James.
And we are Life After Union, two twin flames in union. We make weekly videos on the spiritual awakening journey, the twin flame journey, and conscious relationships. So today we have an expansion topic on this video that I did this week, talking about, basically diving into the do's and the don'ts of twin flame healing. So if you haven't watched that video, definitely go ahead and watch it or save it for later. And today we're diving into kind of like a sub aspect of one of those do's and don'ts. And we're talking all about what happens when the runner isn't doing the work, right? What do I do in this scenario? And so I think this is a really important topic because I think we all get to that point where we're wondering this. And so one of our first points is, do you actually know? Right?
No, I don't.
Do you actually know that they're not doing the work, right? Or are you just fearing that they're not doing the work? Or are you just assuming they're not doing the work, right? So you brought up something really important.
Or are they just not doing the work that you want them to do, which becomes a manipulation thing then at the end of the day as well. So a lot of times I feel that, sometimes the runner might actually be doing work, but it might not be the work that you see or the work that you want to see coming through, because obviously you want to see the stuff so you can bring you into union faster, but sometimes they actually need to work through these other things before they can get to that point to do that work to become into union. So sometimes it just takes a little bit of trust, a little bit of faith, and just believing that if this is meant to be, the time will come when the time is right.
Yes, and so
which is a horrible thing to think about sometimes as well.
Yes, and you're jumping ahead in our video.
It's the right time.
So basically, like, the important part to keep in mind too is, like, many chasers, right, will see the runner maybe in some other type of a relationship, whether it's a karmic relationship or some other type of soulmate relationship, and they'll see this going on and they'll be like, oh, they're not doing the work because they keep choosing this person over me, they keep going back to the same person over and over again. And from your perspective, that's not them doing the work, but you don't actually know that each time they do that, they might be shedding another layer, and they might be shedding another layer. And just because you can't see on the outside with your human perspective that they are actually doing the work, we instantly feel like super negative towards them. We feel super resentful. And like, the funny thing is, both the runner and the chaser have a role to play, okay? So while yes, your twin flame may trigger the hell out of you, right? That doesn't mean that that's them not doing the work. It could mean that they're actually bringing something up for you to look at, and they're helping you do your work, right? So it's like each time, and that's not to say, so here's the disclaimer for this. That's not to say you should be accepting like abusive or neglectful behavior from your twin flame, right? Because that's a whole different ball game. That's, setting boundaries, and that's honoring your own energy. And we can happily talk about that another day. But this is more so to say, like, if you have a perspective shift around, oh, they're not willing to do the work because they keep doing this thing, right? But what about you is attached to the idea that that's not them doing the work? It very well could be. So I think we need to loosen our idea around what their work looks like, because we don't actually know at the end of the day.
And a lot of times as well, something that came to me as you're saying that is, if you're looking at the runner and being like, they are not doing the work, that's also, maybe it's got nothing to do with them. It's actually got a lot to do with you and what you yourself might actually have to look into, because why are you so concerned about what work they're doing exactly? Obviously you want to grow and be able to get to that point of union, but why are you so scared about what they're doing currently, which is actually still work for them, even though it might not be like super fast progress or whatever it might be, or what you want to see. But why? What about you is what is only seen that side of it. So then, therefore, you actually need to take that back and be like, okay, well, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel insecure or unsafe or whatever it might be? And then use that to rather work on yourself and allow them to carry on with their work. And then from there, something huge could change. I mean, it could be a complete 360 flip.
Yeah.
180 flip.
Yeah.
360 the same direction. So yeah, sometimes when we get into those moments, and it's a very difficult thing, but sometimes when you take that and be like, okay, well, why do I feel this way?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that's the best reflection you can do if you're questioning it, right? If you realize maybe after even watching this, you're like, oh yeah, maybe my stuff is coming from fear. Start asking yourself those questions, and you'll really get some quick answers.
Yeah.
Now the other thing is like maybe they aren't doing the work, right? Like everybody does have free will. So that is a very real possibility, right? Like on the twin flame journey, we're here to discover unconditional love. We're here to discover free will and to give that not only to our partners, but also to ourselves. So the really important thing to consider here that if they truly, you've discerned it's not coming from your own fears, it's not coming from your own programmings, but you truly know from like a pure place they aren't doing the work. This is a really hard thing to do. You have to accept that you don't have control. And part of, I think, what the chaser is here to like work on a lot of times is letting go of that control. Because the runner a lot of times seems to be the one in the dynamic that has the control over when the relationship is going to come into being. I'm not saying this is actually true because it's not. This is just an illusion. But it seems from a perspective, and usually from the chaser's perspective, it seems that the runner has control over when they stop running, right? Or has control over when the relationship will come back together. But in reality, the work that the chaser does on themselves can also dictate that. So I think if you realize that your runner is truly not doing the work, you have to accept that there's absolutely nothing you can do about that. They are their own person. They have free will. And the best place that you can get yourself to is to letting go again of that attachment and being able to send them love, send them light, send them support, and say, that's not mine. I got nothing to do with that. And watch and support them from afar and hold them. This is something I talk about in the last video. You hold them in their highest timeline, right? You say like, please God, please universe, spirit, like please help them through their lessons, knowing that I have no ability to do that, right? I can only hold them and see them in their highest timeline and let go of the rest.
Yeah.
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 So I think for that one, that's when you really have to turn back inwards again, and you have to start looking at yourself, focusing on your journey, and releasing the attachment to what if they never, right? What if they never do the work?
Because that's a real possibility.
Mm-hmm.
It's very possible that they might never do the work, and that union might not come about, might not be within your this lifetime. It might not be part of this path, and that's something that we have to accept. And as much as it sucks, once you also accept that, life becomes pretty great again, because you're no longer fixated on this one thing, on everything relies on this one person. Because essentially, your twin flame, this is your person, and a lot relies on them. But if that person's not there, you're still there, you're still alive, you're still living, you still do everything you normally would do. So you need to remember that it's great to have them, but it's even better to have yourself.
Yeah. Yes, and I think you're exactly right, and you hit on a really important part, which is what you resist persists, right? So if you're resisting this realization that we may never come into union, you have to be very real with yourself on the twin flame journey, right? And it's almost like you have to hope for the best, but you have to be okay with the worst. And so if you can be okay with the worst case scenario, which may be we never come into union, if you can make peace with that aspect of yourself, the whole world becomes free to you again, because you realize, oh, we might never come into union, and you process the pain and the emotion. I'm not saying that that's an easy thing to do, because it's not. It's absolutely not. But once you process all that and you can actually make peace with the fact that that is a very real possibility in the way that infinite scenarios may play out, that is one of the scenarios, right? Now, is it probable? I don't know. But is it possible? Yes. Which means if you can make peace with that, and you can actually be like, okay, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to be a failure. My whole life isn't going to go to ruin if this doesn't happen. You become free again. And that's where that releasing of attachment happens, because you're not putting all this pressure and all this weight on this one thing. You're realizing that, I actually will be okay if that never happens. Which I think that also leads us then to, do you have something to say on that at all?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay. Which then that leads us to then our third point, which is you have to then trust. And this is where that trust and surrender comes in on the twin flame journey, is you have to trust that it's going to be, this is the quote I always like, it's this or something better, right? So if you are on the twin flame journey, you are willing to put in the work, then you have to know that something in alignment to that is going to come to you, right? You wouldn't just have this desire for this kind of relationship or this caliber of person if it wasn't meant for you, right? Like your desires desire you. And I think sometimes we really miss that, and we think, oh, I just desire things so I can be disappointed. Maybe I'm not meant to ever have what I want. Maybe I'm meant to learn that I'm not worthy of having what I want. And like, that's the stories that need to go away, right? Those are all the stories that are not going to serve you moving forward, especially on your twin flame journey. And if you can come to a place where you're like, okay, I trust with all of my heart that if it's not my twin flame, universe, spirit, God will give me something better than that, right? Because that's always how the universe is working. Like if we can't see it from our limited human perspective, it's because it's actually better than what you asked for. It's actually in more alignment than what you asked for. It's actually bigger and like more amazing than what you can even conceive of now, right?
Yeah, and I feel that to get that, you have to release. I mean, and once you do, you start to realize, and it's a very difficult thing to go through. And it's something that I'm pretty sure I can speak for the both of us. We both went through more than once, multitude of times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that you constantly kind of work on. You're constantly moving through, and eventually, things start to feel like they fall into place. And sometimes maybe another pothole or speed bump, and things kind of wobble around again, and then you just trust in the journey again, and things come back. And it's one of those things that it almost never really goes away. You just learn to trust it more and learn to not allow it to affect you to such a deep depth that it actually stops you from being able to move on with your life and progressing things, and really expand yourself to a point where it becomes easier.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think it's funny because when we get really caught up in need, like I need this to happen, the only thing you really need is like food, water, and oxygen, and maybe like a place to sleep, a shelter, right? Like, I don't know if you guys have ever looked into Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but that is the baseline of what a human needs to survive. Anything more than that, and you're actually doing more than surviving, right? So
Thriving.
Our ego, because it's so outdated in its programming, when we want something, we get our wants confused with our needs. Okay, and when we do this, we think, oh, I need that Mercedes, or I need that diamond ring, or I need that specific partner, or I need this salary. When in reality, what you need is super baseline, super simple. Anything above that is what you want, right? So if we can release the attachment to the fact, and a lot of this comes from our own disempowerment, because our twin flame comes into our life and they signify this beautiful life that we've always dreamed of. Maybe you're living in the most beautiful place. Maybe you're doing the career you've always dreamed of. Maybe you're having the kids that you've always wanted. Maybe you're just engaged in a conscious relationship that you've always dreamed of, right? So they bring all of this to your life to show you the potential. And then What we do as humans, which is so natural, so if you've done this, don't feel bad. We say, this is the person that's going to make my life better. This is the person that's going to make all my dreams come true. When in reality, it's not this person. It's this person. This person. That person.
This person for me.
It's this person. This person just showed you it was possible, right? This person showed you it's possible, but you're still going to create the whole thing. Right? You're still going to make the life of your dreams. You still have to take radical responsibility and action for your own dreams, right? They're not going to make your dreams a reality. You have to do that. And so we get confused because we say, oh, this person has the key to my everything. They don't. They don't have the key to your everything. But if you both are in alignment, you both will want the same things, and then you'll have the pleasure of being able to create it together. Because I think that's the main thing between us, is we've really come to that realization, and you touched on this earlier, but we've really come to that realization that we don't really need each other, right? We could survive without each other, but what we want is the same thing. We both want this to work out. We know we'd be heartbroken. Don't confuse the people at home. We know we'd be heartbroken if this didn't work out. Of course, there'd be tons of emotions. But we both know at the end of the day, we would survive it and we would still be on our path. But the difference is, because we've released that attachment, there's no longer this pressure of I need you to be a certain way, or I need you to this, or I need you to that in order for this to work out. It's no, we both understand we want this to work out and we're both willing to work towards that, but we don't need it. So it creates a lot of natural flow in the relationship, and it makes things a lot more effortless. Now, that's not to say there's not other issues and there's not other conflicts.
Yeah, there's a lot.
But that's just to say, that element is not necessarily there in our relationship 100% of the time. I would say we've gone through phases in and out where it probably has been there, but in the general day-to-day, it's not there.
I mean, I think ultimately, at least for us, and obviously I can't speak for everybody else because every relationship is different, but ultimately for us, what we want most is I want you to be you. That's it. I don't want you to be what I want you to be, because I can't make you into this perfect partner that just, sits there quietly and does what I tell. That wouldn't be a relationship.
Right.
And it doesn't mean, that sometimes I might bring things up to Serena and I might be these things annoy me a little bit, and she might do the same thing to me. Doesn't mean, if we don't change those things, that's it, everything's done with you, I'm walking away, never coming back. But we're expressing these are things that, I might not like. If you would like to work on them, fantastic. If you don't, just know that I'm not going to be as receptive to that as you might want me to be, because that is something that, grates me, or whatever, however you want to explain it. And it's those things that you work on together, but you don't make the person have to do it in order for the relationship to work. And that's where a big difference comes in. I think a lot of times, a lot of people overlook and don't see.
Overlook and don't see.
Yeah, because they're looking over.
I've never heard that as a phrase before, but I think that brings a good point around, not doing the work for them, right? We might have, and actually probably your twin flame has the best, if not most clear idea of what you should be working on, potentially, if it's not coming from ego. They have a really good idea of what you should be working on, but they don't force you to do it. They say, hey, look, I have this thing that you could look at. You don't have to, but it would probably benefit you if you did, right? There are things that both of us can see within each other that we're oh, well, you really clearly should be working on this.
Closing cupboard doors.
But but we're not going to force that down the other one's throat,
no.
Like you're doing in this video.
Let's make an example.
That was a good one, though, wasn't it? Yeah, thank you. So we're not going to force it. It's just one of those things where it's we want each other, like you said, to be ourselves and to be the best version of ourselves. But we really want to see each other succeed. So if I see that you're doing something that's holding you back, I'm not going to say, I want you to change this for me. I'm going to say, I want you to change this because I think you would have more success in your life if you did this. But at the same time, if you don't want to do that, that's okay. Because I'm not marrying your potential, I'm marrying you, right? So that's it.
That's it. Drop the mic. We're out.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any comments or questions, put it down below, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for being here today. Also, if you want to join Union Catalyst Portal, you can find the links below. We will have an extension video and an extension live webinar on this very topic. So if you're interested in diving into that webinar, we're happy to have you there. You can join the community. Thanks so much for being here today. See you in the next video.
Bye.
Bye. All right, guys. I'm going to keep that in the video.
All right. End this.
All right, guys.
And what else?
And that.